Yeah, okay, so we are being inevitably dragged leftward, and so I say we go there. So the left wing has its own problem with anti-Semitism and the disregard of anti-Semitism. Well, I guess for those who, I'm sure most people are familiar with the term, but let's define the concept of intersectionality before we wade into this morass.
Okay, so intersectionality was this idea that was coined, or like really a framework for thinking about discrimination and oppression. And it was coined by this woman named Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989. And she based it on this very interesting case, which took place at General Motors, in which five Black women sued GM for hiring discrimination. And at the time that they sued, GM had jobs for Black men on the factory floor, and it had jobs for white women as secretaries. And this meant that these Black women, these five Black women, couldn't be, they weren't acceptable in either job. For one job, they were too female, for another, they were too Black. And so they kind of fell through the cracks because of these intersecting discriminations. So that idea in and of itself is very sound. And the idea that, some people can sort of be doubly blessed while some people can be doubly compromised, that again, great idea. The problem is that in reality, intersectionality functions as a kind of caste system. And what I mean by that is if you think about like Western civilization up until, 5 minutes ago, the caste system was clear. If you're a white, able bodied, tall man that looks like, John Hamm, you're at the top of the food chain. And go down the line. The more disabled you are, or female you are, or gay, or, go down the line, the lower you are on the food chain. What intersectionality does is it reverses that caste system. It says that the John Hams of the world are at the bottom, and the people at the top are people that are transgender, people that are queer, people that are disabled, people that, and I can go on and on and on. And the more claim to victimhood you have, the higher you are in that caste system.
Hmm.
Now, the place where it gets even worse and more damaging is the idea that the more claim you have to victimhood, in fact, the more claim you have to truth and morality, the more standing you have to even comment on topics. And this to me is, as anti American as the idea that, that to have a certain skin color makes you more or less American. The idea that you are sort of condemned to the lane of your class or your station or even your religion, or that having a certain skin color means that you need to ascribe to a certain set of ideas, that to me is incompatible, frankly, with liberal democracy. And it is an idea that has taken tremendous hold over the political left, and increasingly you see it seeping into the mainstream of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, see, I mean, I have a kind of a litmus test here, which can very quickly determine whether somebody is reachable by argument in the context of left-wing politics and this principle of intersectionality, because it even violates itself in many cases. And
Totally.
the litmus test for me always is, what is someone's attitude toward Ayaan Hirsi Ali, if they know who she is? And I would just put it to you that if understanding her full story, you can't recognize that Ayaan is actually a feminist hero, there is something wrong with you. You have a
Mhm.
totally incoherent moral worldview. This was just became especially vivid to me actually 2 days ago. My wife and I were at a talk that Ayaan was giving, and it was the first talk she had given on a college campus in 3 years, ever since she was deplatformed at Brandeis. And there were two women behind us, two young women. I mean, they were probably college students, and they were probably 20. And they were grumbling about more or less everything Ayaan said. They weren't heckling, but every time Ayaan demurred from left-wing identity politics, under their breath and not so under their breath, you'd hear some kind of whinging comment from these girls. And it's important to point out that Ayaan had already run through her entire life story, which contains just astonishing abuse, from FGM onward. And she was talking about the abuse of her peers in school and in their families, physical abuse, sexual abuse, routinely visited upon these girls. And, Ayan is Somali, right? Which apparently does not make her black enough to win intersectionality points here. But if you look at her story and what she's had to suffer and the kinds of threats she continues to get, I mean, you would have to find a transgender person from Mars who should have more intersectional points than Ayan. And yet, this is the kind of reception she gets from some pampered white chicks on a college campus. It really is, it's astonishing to me. And to take the whole picture of the worldview here, if you think, as these, women certainly do, that someone like Brett Kavanaugh is a fucking monster, but you also think that a hijabi theocrat like Linda Sarsour is a feminist icon, and Ayan isn't, you really need a brain transplant. I mean, this doesn't run through ethically. This is the kind of black hole that is sucking everything into a state of moral confusion on the left.
Well, the example that I think about a lot is the way that someone like Megan Phelps Roper gets treated in the New Yorker. And I'm a big fan of hers. I'm excited for her new book.
Yeah,
She's, grew up in the Westboro Baptist Church as I don't even know if we can call it Christian, but as a Christian fundamentalist, they're
a Christian
the
cult.
God
Yeah,
who hates fags people. And then you look
yeah.
at someone like Sarah Haider, who I'm looking forward to meeting in real life, who's Pakistani, former Muslim, outspoken atheist, similar journey in a way out of religious fundamentalism. And yet she is either ignored, or when she's not ignored, she's smeared as somehow promoting Islamophobia. This to me is crazy. Like, these are the two very, very similarly situated people around my age, both women, both left fundamentalist religion. And yet one is valorized, I'm thrilled for her, and one is either ignored or demonized.
Yeah, I would add Yasmin Mohammed there, who I think just got deplatformed from Twitter, 2 days ago. She's been reinstated, but she got reinstated by, me DMing Jack and trying to figure out what the hell happened there, right? And this is routine. I mean, every time someone interviews one of these women on their YouTube channel, their videos get demonetized just for talking to them. This is not just confused students on college campuses. This is the policy of tech companies and the way in which they're deranged by, campaigns of Islamist protest against people who are true feminists. I mean, again, this is how the feminism breaks down. If you're concerned about Me Too violations in the West, as you should be, then you have to have some sense of proportion when thinking about what it's like for women under Sharia law and suffering FGM and honor killings and the reality of real rape culture that exists throughout the Muslim world. Getting groped is not the same thing as getting a clitorectomy.
It's the insidiousness of the idea of who are we to judge. I remember running up against this wall again and again and again when I was a student in college. And it was honestly the thing that, if I can even use this language anymore, woke me up, literally. Because I remember getting into a debate with people who were smart, and we had heard a lecture. It was somehow adjacent. I don't think it was Ion, but it was someone like that. And I remember having a conversation saying, well, guys, all people are created equal, but not all cultures are equally good at protecting people like me, people who are gay, people that are women, people that are disabled, people that are different, right? And literally, that could not be said.
No,
And this was 15 years ago in college. I remember being in a course, I will never forget this, where widow burning was basically justified.
right.
I'm
Yeah.
serious. By a professor that was absolutely beloved. And, we were in the class and we were hearing about the evils of colonialism. And of course, there were many, many evils inflicted by colonialism. And yet, widow burning is never justified in my universe, ever. And that was the kind of thing, like, that was the machine that you were being put through ideologically. And you really had to look elsewhere and fight hard to find other perspectives. But that was very much the norm, this kind of, you know, cultural relativism. Who are we to judge?
Yeah.
Really should be sending me a drink to the room that I'm currently
Right.
sitting
Yeah.
in order to have this conversation.
Yeah, it's later over there. You